The moon hung low over the village of Umuis, its silvery glow illuminating the wide clearing at the heart of the settlement. Tonight was the Moonlight Festival, a night when the ancestors were celebrated, and the village was alive with the sound of drums, laughter, and the scent of roasted yam mingling with that of palm wine. The people of Umuis, young and old, gathered under the great Iroko tree, their spirits high as they danced to the rhythm of the Udu drums. Among the revelers sat Adamma, the daughter of Izabes, the village chief. She was a vision in her coral beads and flowing wrapper, her skin glistening in the firelight. Yet, despite her beauty and the adoration of the villagers, her heart was heavy. Adamma was not like the other girls in Umuis, she longed for more than what tradition dictated. She dreamed of freedom, of love unbound by obligation, and of a life where she could choose her own path. Her father, however, had other plans. As the chief's only child, she was betrothed to Obinna, the son of a neighboring chief. Obinna was wealthy, powerful, and respected, but to Adamma, he was cold and calculating. Their marriage was not about love, it was a union meant to strengthen alliances. As the dancers moved to the beat of the Udu, a figure stepped into the clearing. Chike, the potter's son, carried himself with quiet confidence, his lean frame outlined by the fire's glow. He was known in the village for his craftsmanship, particularly his ability to create Udu drums that resonated with deep, haunting melodies. Chike's entrance caused a ripple of murmurs. A potter's son had no business mingling at such a grand event, but his talent had earned him some level of respect. He carried an Udu drum, its surface adorned with intricate carvings that told stories of love, courage, and rebellion. Adamma noticed him immediately. There was something about his demeanor that intrigued her, his calm defiance, his refusal to shrink in the presence of those who considered themselves superior. Their eyes met across the clearing, and for a brief moment, the sounds of the festival faded into the background. As the night wore on, Chike approached Adamma under the guise of presenting his Udu to the chief. He bowed low before her, his voice steady but tinged with nervousness. "You honor the moonlight with your beauty," he said softly. Adamma's lips curved into a smile. "And you dish a tradition by being here," she teased, her tone light but curious. Their conversation flowed like the melody of the drums, each word pulling them closer. By the time the festival ended, Adamma felt a connection she had never known before. But as the villagers dispersed and the fires burned low, the weight of reality settled heavily on her chest. Adamma returned to her father's compound, her heart torn between duty and desire. Little did she know that the brief encounter beneath the moonlight was the first thread in a web of love, betrayal, and tradition that would change her life, and the village of Umuis, forever. The sun rose gently over Umuis, casting a golden hue over the thatched huts and bustling market. Adamma sat by her window, staring at the horizon. The memory of her conversation with Chike the night before lingered in her mind. His words, simple yet sincere, had sparked something within her, a longing for freedom she hadn't fully understood until now. It wasn't long before she found herself wandering to the stream, a place where the air was cooler, and her thoughts seemed clearer. She had come here countless times to escape the pressures of being the chief's daughter. But today, the stream would offer her more than solitude. Chike was there, crouched by the water's edge, shaping a lump of clay. His hands moved with practiced ease, molding it into the beginnings of an Udu drum. Adamma hesitated, her heart pounding as she watched him work. There was something calming about his presence, something that made her feel seen in a way no one else ever had. "Do you always craft your drums by the stream?" she asked, stepping closer. Chike looked up, startled at first, but his expression softened when he saw her. "The water inspires me," he said. "It's alive, always moving, always whispering its secrets." Adamma smiled, sitting on a smooth rock nearby. "And what secrets has it shared with you?" He paused, his gaze meeting hers. "That some things are worth fighting for, even when they seem impossible." The weight of his words hung between them. Adamma looked away, her fingers tracing the edge of her wrapper. "You speak as if you know my heart," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Perhaps I do," he replied, his tone gentle but certain. Over the next few weeks, Adamma and Chike met often by the stream. Their bond deepened with each encounter, their shared laughter and stolen moments becoming a refuge from the rigid expectations of the world around them. Chike would bring her small gifts, delicate pots etched with symbols of love and courage, or freshly baked plantains wrapped in banana leaves. And Adamma, in turn, shared her dreams with him, dreams of a life free from the constraints of tradition. But the walls of secrecy that surrounded their love were thin. Amaka, Adamma's closest friend and confidant, began to notice her absences and the way her eyes seemed to sparkle with a newfound light. One evening, as they sat in the courtyard weaving baskets, Amaka decided to confront her. "You've been distant lately," Amaka said, her tone light but probing. "Your father is beginning to ask questions." Adamma's hand stilled, her gaze fixed on the ground. "I've just been exploring," she said evasively. "Exploring what? Or should I say, who?" Amaka pressed, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You've been meeting the potter's son, haven't you?" Adamma's eyes widened in surprise, but she quickly composed herself. "You wouldn't understand," she said, her voice defensive. Amaka sighed, placing a hand on her friend's arm. "Adamma, I care about you. But this is dangerous. Your father would never allow it, and Obinna, I don't care about Obinna." Adamma snapped, rising to her feet. "I will not marry a man I do not love. I'd rather follow my heart, no matter the cost." Unbeknownst to both girls, Obinna had begun to grow suspicious. During one of his visits to Umui's, he noticed the way Adamma avoided his gaze and how her laughter seemed forced in his presence. Driven by jealousy and pride, he began to investigate, planting seeds of doubt among the villagers and listening carefully for any whispers of betrayal. One afternoon, his efforts bore fruit. A young boy, eager to earn Obinna's favor, mentioned seeing Adamma by the stream in the company of Chike. Furious, Obinna vowed to put an end to their secret meetings and reclaim what he believed was rightfully his. Meanwhile, Adamma and Chike remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around them. They continued to meet beneath the shade of the mango trees, their love growing stronger with each passing day. But the winds of fate had begun to shift, and their world was about to be turned upside down. The first signs of trouble came on a humid evening when the wind carried whispers of discontent through the village. Adamma's father, Isabees, had returned from a council meeting in a neighboring village with a troubled look on his face. He had noticed the growing distance between his daughter and her betrothed, Obinna, and it worried him. To secure alliances was to secure peace, and Adamma's reluctance jeopardized his carefully laid plans. "Adamma," he called, his voice carrying the weight of authority. She entered the obi, the central hut of their compound, her heart sinking as she saw the storm brewing in his eyes. "Why have you been avoiding Obinna?" Isabees demanded, his tone sharp. Adamma hesitated. She knew better than to lie to her father, but the truth was dangerous. "I've been preoccupied, Papa," she said carefully. "There are many preparations for the festival." Her father's gaze bore into her, but he chose not to press further. "You must understand, Adamma, that your union with Obinna is not just about you. It is about the future of our people. Do not forget your duty." Adamma nodded, though her heart rebelled against his words. How could she explain that her heart was already spoken for, that the love she felt for Chike was as natural as the river that flowed through their village? Meanwhile, Obinna was making his own plans. Fueled by jealousy and pride, he had decided to confront Chike directly. He gathered a few loyal men from his village and rode to Umui's under the pretense of visiting Adamma. He found Chike in the marketplace, selling his pottery to eager buyers. Chike's skill with clay and his ability to create music from his udu drums had made him a beloved figure in the community. But to Obinna, he was nothing more than a threat. "You dare to covet what is not yours?" Obinna snarled, stepping into Chike's path. Chike looked up, his expression calm despite the tension in the air. "Adamma is not a thing to be owned," he said. "She has the right to choose her own path." Obinna's face darkened with anger. "And you think she would choose you? A potter's son with nothing to offer but clay and empty dreams?" Chike stood his ground. "I offer her love, something your wealth and power can never buy." The confrontation escalated, drawing the attention of the villagers. Some murmured in disapproval, while others watched in silence, torn between their respect for Chike and their fear of Obinna. The commotion reached the ears of Bees, who summoned both men to his palace. Adamma arrived moments later, her heart pounding as she realized what had happened. "What is the meaning of this?" Bees demanded, his voice thundering through the room. Obinna wasted no time. "Your daughter has been meeting this potter's son in secret, bringing shame to your family and dishonor to our agreement." The chief's gaze shifted to Adamma, who stood with her head held high. "Is this true?" he asked, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. "Yes, Papa," Adamma said, her voice steady. "I love Chike. I will not marry Obinna." Her words sent a ripple of shock through the room. Bees rose to his feet, his hands trembling. "You dare defy me? You disgrace this family with your foolishness." "Papa, please listen to me," Adamma pleaded. "I cannot live a life bound by duty alone. I want to be with someone who sees me for who I am, not as a tool for alliances." But her father's anger was implacable. "You will marry Obinna as planned," he declared. "This matter is settled." That night, Adamma wept in the solitude of her room, the walls of the palace feeling more like a prison than ever before. She knew her father would never understand, and Obinna would stop at nothing to have her. In the darkness, a plan began to form. If she and Chike could not be together in Umui's, they would leave the village and build a life elsewhere. But they had to act quickly, for the walls were closing in, and time was not on their side. Little did Adamma know, her decision would set in motion a chain of events that would test the strength of their love and the bonds of tradition in ways she could never have imagined. Night fell quietly over Umui's, the stillness broken only by the distant chirping of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl. Adamma stood by her window, staring out into the darkness. Her mind raced with the weight of the decision she had made earlier that day. If she and Chike were to escape, they had to leave before dawn, before her father could stop them. Her hands trembled as she packed a small bundle, just a few clothes and some cowries. The thought of leaving her family, her home, and everything she had ever known made her chest ache. But the thought of living a life bound by duty and without love was far worse. Elsewhere, in his modest hut near the edge of the village, Chike prepared for their journey. He placed his tools and a small udu drum in a leather sack, his heart heavy with both excitement and fear. He had no illusions about the risks they were taking. If they were caught, the consequences would be severe, and not just for him, but for Adamma as well. As the hours dragged on, Chike couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The air seemed heavier, the shadows darker. He dismissed it as nerves and focused on the plan: meet Adamma by the mango tree at the edge of the village, and from there, travel to a distant settlement where they could start anew. But not everyone had remained unaware of their intentions. Amaka, Adamma's closest friend, had noticed her unusual behavior and pieced together what was happening. Torn between loyalty to her friend and fear of the repercussions, Amaka decided to confront her. "You're leaving, aren't you?" Amaka whispered, stepping into Adamma's room unannounced. Adamma froze, her bundle clutched tightly in her hands. "Amaka, please don't try to stop me," she said, her voice trembling. "This is madness, Adamma." Amaka hissed, her eyes wide with panic. "Do you know what your father will do when he finds out? And Obinna, he's not the kind of man to let this go." "I can't stay here, Amaka," Adamma said, tears streaming down her face. "I can't live a life that isn't mine. Please, just let me go." Amaka hesitated, her heart torn. She wanted to protect her friend, but the fear of what might happen if this went wrong was too great. Against her better judgment, she decided to warn the chief. By the time Adamma slipped out of the palace and made her way to the mango tree, the wheels of betrayal were already in motion. Chike was waiting for her, his face lighting up when he saw her approaching. "You're here," he said, pulling her into an embrace. "I couldn't stay," she whispered, her voice muffled against his chest. "Let's go before anyone notices." But before they could take a step, the sound of voices and hurried footsteps shattered the quiet of the night. Adamma and Chike turned to see a group of men, led by Obinna, emerging from the shadows. "So, this is your grand plan?" Obinna sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "Running away like cowards?" Chike stepped in front of Adamma, his fists clenched. "Leave her out of this," he said firmly. "This is between you and me." Adamma laughed, a cold, menacing sound. "You? You're nothing but a potter's son. Did you really think you could take what belongs to me?" The confrontation quickly escalated. Chike fought valiantly, but he was outnumbered. As Adamma raised a machete to strike, Adamma screamed and threw herself between them. The blade grazed her arm, drawing blood that dripped onto the ground. The sound of her cry pierced the night, drawing the attention of villagers who had been roused by the commotion. Among them was Adamma, his face a mask of fury and disbelief as he took in the scene before him. "What is the meaning of this?" he roared, his voice silencing the chaos. Adamma, clutching her wounded arm, stepped forward. "Papa, it's my fault," she said, her voice trembling but determined. "I love Chike. I was going to leave with him because I cannot marry a man I do not love." The crowd gasped, murmurs spreading like wildfire. Adamma's face twisted with rage. "She has dishonored you, Adamma. She has disgraced your family and our agreement." But before the chief could respond, an elder stepped forward. He was one of the oldest men in the village, his voice heavy with authority. "Let us not be too quick to judge," he said. "This is not the first time love has defied tradition. Perhaps the ancestors are teaching us a lesson." Adamma looked at his daughter, his heart torn. He had always ruled with strength and tradition, but for the first time, he saw the courage it had taken for Adamma to follow her heart. "Take them both to the palace," he said finally. "We will let the council decide their fate." As the villagers dispersed, Adamma and Chike were led away, their hands clasped tightly despite the uncertainty ahead. The night had revealed their love to the world, but whether it would survive the trials to come was a question only the dawn could answer. The atmosphere in the palace was tense the following morning as the village council convened. The air was thick with murmurs and speculation as elders, family members, and key figures gathered to decide the fate of Adamma and Chike. The two sat at the center of the room, their hands bound as a symbol of their defiance, though their spirits remained unbroken. Adamma sat at the head of the gathering, his expression unreadable. As chief, he was tasked with upholding tradition and the honor of his lineage, but as a father, the sight of his daughter, pale and wounded, stirred a conflict within him. The council began with Adamma, who wasted no time in presenting his case. "This man," he said, pointing at Chike, "has not only insulted my honor but also undermined the agreements between two great families. He is a mere potter, unworthy of standing in the presence of this council, let alone being considered as a suitor for Adamma." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the elders, but Adamma rose to her feet, her voice steady despite the tension. "I chose Chike," she said, her gaze unwavering. "Not for his wealth or his status, but for the love and respect he has shown me. Should I sacrifice my happiness and my future for a union based on obligation alone?" An elder leaned forward, his tone grave. "Adamma, love is a beautiful thing, but tradition sustains our people. Your union with Adamma was meant to strengthen ties and ensure peace between our villages. Do you not see the danger in defying this?" "I see the danger in denying my heart," Adamma replied. "What example do we set if we force love into the shadows, bound by chains of duty? Are we not a people of courage and integrity?" Her words stirred unease among the elders, but also a flicker of admiration. Few had ever dared to speak so boldly in such a setting. Chike spoke next, his voice calm but resolute. "I understand the weight of tradition," he said. "But I also understand the value of true partnership. Adamma is not a tool to be bartered, she is a person with her own dreams and desires. If it is a crime to love her, then I am guilty, and I accept whatever punishment you see fit. But do not let this be the legacy of Adamma, a village that punishes love while upholding alliances built on fear." The room fell silent. Even Adamma, who had been brimming with anger, seemed momentarily taken aback. Finally, Adamma stood, commanding the attention of all present. "Enough," he said, his voice firm but weary. "This matter is not one to be taken lightly. It concerns not only my family but the future of our people. We must consult the ancestors and seek their guidance before any decision is made." The elders nodded in agreement, and preparations were made for a sacred ritual. That night, under the light of a full moon, the priestess of Umuis led the villagers to the ancestral grove. The air was thick with the scent of burning herbs as she called upon the spirits of their forebears, seeking wisdom and clarity. When the ritual concluded, the priestess turned to the gathered crowd, her face solemn. "The ancestors have spoken," she said. "They remind us that tradition is meant to serve the people, not enslave them. A union built on love and mutual respect is a foundation stronger than any alliance forged through obligation." But they also caution that such love must come with responsibility, a willingness to honor the community and its values. Her words sent a ripple of shock and relief through the crowd. Adamma felt tears sting her eyes as she grasped Chike's hand tightly. The following morning, the council reconvened to deliver its verdict. Isabees rose, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "In light of the guidance we have received, I declare that Adamma and Chike's love will not be condemned. However, their union must be a testament to their commitment to this village and its prosperity. Let them show us that love and tradition can coexist." The room erupted in mixed reactions, but Adamma and Chike felt nothing but overwhelming gratitude. They bowed deeply before the council, promising to honor their people and work tirelessly to uphold the values of Umuis. As the weeks passed, the village gradually accepted the couple. Chike's talents as a potter and musician became an even greater source of pride for Umuis, and Adamma's determination inspired other young women to voice their own dreams and desires. Even Obinna, though bitter at first, eventually found peace in the understanding that true love could not be forced. Under the shade of the mango tree where their journey had begun, Adamma and Chike built a life together, one filled with laughter, music, and the kind of love that inspired songs and stories for generations to come.